Election Day on the horizon, Georgia election officials are trying to ease voters' concerns with new election rules. As part of our continuing Swing State Spotlight series, tonight we focus on the Peach State. Joining us live from Savannah, Georgia, is our next star colleague at WSAV News 3, Ben Sanger. Ben, you've got a lot of fascinating dynamics happening in your state this evening.
No shortage of storylines, that is for sure. Why don't we start with what happened up in Augusta today? Not once, but twice, the former president called Governor Brian Kemp a fantastic governor, saying he was doing a fantastic job. That is quite different from the messaging that he has been putting out in recent years, very critical of the governor. What was interesting and what we are waiting to hear, I guess, more from Governor Kemp this evening, whether he will be asked about former President Trump's remarks later on in that press briefing. President Trump did not bring up the federal response himself. He was asked that after his remarks by reporters, and he claimed that the federal response had been lacking, though we know that Governor Kemp has not been critical of the federal response. So we'll wait to see whether Kemp will have something to say about what the former president said.
Ben Sanger live for us in Savannah, Georgia this evening. Ben, thank you very much. Appreciate it. As Ben mentioned there, Trump is trying to make amends with the governor in Georgia. They were not talking, and now they're talking. And Republicans were worried about this, and that's probably why you're seeing what we're seeing now.
I tell you, that Brian Kemp is kind of a stud duck. He waited on Donald Trump. He waited him out because he knew that Trump would come back and need him later. And Donald Trump, just if we want to know how it was, Donald Trump one time said it would be better if Stacey Abrams defeated Brian Kemp. Donald Trump hated Brian Kemp because Brian Kemp would not help him steal that election. He and Brad Raffensperger down in Georgia said, no, we're not going to play along. We're not going to do it. And Trump did everything he could to take him out. Right. He primaried him. He did everything that he could.
After his wife, went after his wife.
Just the worst. And you know what? Kemp never cracked. And he didn't go either way. He didn't say, now I'm not a Republican, I'm going to, join the resistance. And neither did he knuckle under, and he waited. And so it was very significant that Trump today had to come and eat crow.
Your party needed this, right? Republicans who we've been talking to were saying Donald Trump could not win Georgia if that didn't happen.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we are able to coalesce and make a decision that the disastrous policies from the Democrats are more important than our dislike, or some people's dislike, of the top of the ticket. And what we've seen is the record of the last 4 years is really helping that narrative, even when we juxtapose it with the rhetoric that she has newly found in the last month or so.
So Donald Trump...
I felt him at the other end of the table.
Donald Trump was in Georgia. Donald Trump was in Georgia today, Scott, because of the storm response. And there is exposure there to Kamala Harris and to the White House because it is a real natural disaster there. What is the exposure? Because that's why Donald Trump is in part down there.
Yeah, but the natural disaster isn't just the flooding in Helene. The natural disaster is that Georgia is in play. And I don't know whether you all looked at that video, but I didn't see a love fest at all.
Oh, there was no love fest there.
Not at all. And it was tolerance, if you will. It was like they were looking away from each other, shaking each other's hand because God told them to shake hands because Georgia is super necessary. It'll be interesting to see what the governor does, not so much this photo op and coming together for the people of Georgia who have been affected by Helene. Does he put people on the ground? Does he do fundraising? Does he get behind him? Because he needs the governor, who's a popular governor in Georgia, to get behind him.
And the Republican Party in Georgia is a basket case. Brian Kemp basically had to create his own parallel structure to replace a state party that's
There's another reason this is real important, real quick, is because the discretionary piece now to certifying Georgia election results on the presidential race, right? That's another storyline that's going to play out. If they don't certify those elections because of some discretionary issue, it's going to be up to Kemp again.
Thank you for watching. And make sure you go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.